So in this week's portion, we have a continuation of the story of how we are to build the Mishkan. So Vayakhel, it continues. I want to zoom in on one element here, and it's the Ketoret, the incense that was burned at the Mishkan. We know it served a practical purpose, of course, because certainly the smell of the animals was something that needed to be overcome. Obviously it smelled a little bit better once they burned it, but the smell of slaughtering animals we know is not something that people are pleased by smelling. So it did serve a functional purpose, but there's also a very spiritual purpose to the Ketoret. So if you look at what Ketoret means, I think many of us know Keter as meaning crown, but in the Aramaic, Keter actually has a meaning, a connotation of bond. So we know a korban, a sacrifice, the shorish of that, the root of that is to draw closer to God. That is the intention of a sacrifice. But here we have the Ketoret, and that is to bond us together as people, to bond us with God, to bond our sacrifice so that it has a pleasant smell both to us and to God. I want to point out that smell is actually a lot more crucial than we even think about. If you close your eyes for a minute, I want you to think about one of your favorite memories that has a smell to it, right? Maybe it's the smell of challah baking in the oven at home. Maybe it's your favorite meal or a holiday meal being prepared. Maybe it's the smell of a newborn in your family who was born, and babies certainly have a good smell. I think there are many, many smells that we can think of that have scent memories that draw really positive reactions from us, that can take us back to those times instantly, right? Smell is something that awakens something in us. It brings us to a moment, and we can appreciate it because we have good smells associated with it. So the concept of the Ketoret, of bringing these incense offerings, the smells, right? I want to give for you a little list about exactly what went into it. So it's identified as having many different components. And so some of them you might be familiar with and you would know, frankincense, right? Some of them are a little bit less familiar. So there's balsam oil, onycha, I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing these correctly, storax, frankincense, musk, cassia, spikenard, saffron, costus, cinnamon, agarwood. Think about all these ingredients. Think about the time it would have taken for our ancestors to not only collect these ingredients, but to take the time to actually build a sort of a perfume profile of these scents, right? Our ancestors were so rushed leaving Egypt, they didn't have time for their bread to rise, but they bothered to work on this, right? That they would take the time to collect all these ingredients and to continue, building this scent profile, and then having the right moment to offer these to God, to burn them at the altars, so that they would smell nicer during the offerings. That takes effort. That takes a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of effort. And I think that is something we understand. We may not understand animal sacrifices so well anymore because that's not something we've been doing the last couple thousand years, right? But we do understand time, dedication, and effort. Those are things that we understand and that we continue to do. Those are our offerings to God, and how we draw closer to God and to our community, right? So we may not have Ketoret at our regular services. We do have Havdalah, we do have spices that we smell. And that's one way to prolong that final moment of Shabbat before we head into a new week, but we do so with a pleasant smell. And that's a pleasant scent memory as well. So even though perfumes and things like that. They can seem a little bit of a vanity sometimes, or like a little bit of a luxury, right? But it turns out that scents have a much more powerful meaning than we might think at first. So, what does this mean to us, and how do we apply it to our lives? I think we understand, first of all, I think when we have moments to smell the roses, we should smell the roses, right? We can build up those pleasant scent memories, and we can hold them dear in our hearts, and we can find ways to remember them and think about them in a positive way. But also, I think it really means that we find those moments. Where is it worthwhile to make that effort to gather those ingredients, to find the right mixture, and then to offer it up to God, to someone else in our community? What kind of offerings are we making, and what kind of effort are we putting in? So I think moving forward, we can find the Ketoret of our lives. It may not be the same as what it was back then, but I think we do understand how do we put effort into something and make it pleasant.